Hi all, we have amazing guest today, Devika from Philian Capital. Thank you so much, dear Devika, for joining. And while people getting connected, we were just discussing before this start about growing IT industry, VC industry in the region in Central Asia. This year, export of IT services and products from Kazakhstan is doubled. It's 300K US dollars. Same in Uzbekistan, and similar numbers are in Kyrgyzstan, kind of largest economies in the region. And it would be interesting to discuss everything around VC world, startup world. And we actually had a few questions which are like too narrow. We were discussing them with Devika, and we kind of decided to do it in a little bit different fashion. Thank you, dear Devika. If you could briefly tell about your background and about Feeling Capital, please.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Oscar, for that lovely introduction. And thank you for having me here. Hi, everyone. My name is Devika Bade. I am born and brought up in India, in Mumbai. And my journey is a mix of a lot of things, but let's start with what I'm doing recently. Today, I'm in the capacity of the co-founder of Feline Capital, as you can see here. We are an aggregator and a media hub, creating an ecosystem for startups and venture capital firms, specializing or focusing in emerging markets. Along with that, I am also a head of platforms and network at Dream Venture Capital, or Dream VC, which is a investor accelerator and a training platform where we run programs for upcoming industry professionals and investors alike who are interested in the venture capital space. And our programs are actually live right now. So in case anybody is interested in applying or interested in the venture capital space, please write me on LinkedIn and I would be happy to share with you about the programs. And last but not the least, I am also a lecturer at DMUK, which is what brings me to your lovely country in this beautiful city, Almaty. But I teach business and marketing as well. So that's a little bit about me.
I guess Almaty is lucky to have you, and thank you so much for enriching our landscape. And guys, we have options to write questions. It will look like this in the chat. So please feel free to post them. We will kind of voice them. And first question is, what is the overall situation in VC industry in 2024, in your opinion? Oh, sorry.
Also, this newest guest is adorable. She's very cute. Yeah, so I would say the venture capital space, let's just talk about the funding ecosystem, right? It's been slow, right? 2023 was probably one of the slowest. And 2024 looks like it's going to be slow as well. Now, what do I mean by slow, right? Number one is a lot of VCs and agencies that basically fund are not ready, do not have that amount of risk appetite that maybe we had during COVID, right? A lot of the companies actually were born during the pandemic, especially online and digital platforms. And so there was this positive outlook towards the market, which is why a lot of money went into a lot of digital platforms. What happened coming 2022 was that the pandemic was over and people were out and about, right? So the digital ecosystem sort of dissipated a little bit. And so what we're looking right now is sort of the ground reality post-COVID. And I feel like it'll slowly pick up eventually by 2024 and 2025, but it is going to be a slow round. Though I would say that the organizations or the startup entrepreneurs who have good startups and who would have anyway got funding are still being funded. So it's not that the money is not flowing, it absolutely is, but it's just harder to get a grasp of it for a lot of pre-seed and early stage startups.
So it's quite positive outlook, and probably given AI proliferation adoption. Guys, if you have questions, because we only booked Devika's time for like half an hour, so please be proactive. We are putting another question is, what entrepreneurs should be careful about before signing agreement with VCs? And this was quite popular question from community to you. If you could comment, please.
Yeah, the community is very smart because this is a very, very, very important question. And on a day-to-day basis, I see examples of entrepreneurs and business owners suffering because they had a bad deal with a problematic accelerator, with a problematic venture capital. Either they don't get enough attention, either they're not getting enough help, or either the funding organization is not mobilizing any resources for them, right? So let's start from the basics, right? In today's world, especially, a lot of accelerator programs are cropping up. And these people will ask you for equity, right? Give us 10% equity, 15% equity. And I would say be very careful about putting your equity on the table without any exchange of funds. Let's start there, right? Number two, if you're looking at a funding organization, you have to make sure that they are ready to mobilize their resources and give you what you need as a company. Think about asking for funding as a marriage, right? You're looking for a partner. You're not looking for just money. So first thing you would want to do within your company is figure out what are the gaps. What do we not have as an organization, right? For example, if I'm running a company and I say, I'm new to Almaty and I don't have network, right? So I know that network is my biggest gap. So when I go out looking for funding at any of these funding organizations, let's say a VC, my biggest way to research this venture capital firm is going to be, do they have the network in Almaty that I do not have, right? That's one. Number two, are they willing to mobilize their resources and tap into their network in order to help me out, right? Number three, does this funding organization have capacity? Right? Because a lot of VCs are sort of working at the cap, especially if you talk about mega venture capitals, like super large companies with, let's say, 50 million, 500 million plus, 1 billion plus assets under management. What happens is a lot of the VCs do not have space and capacity for emerging startups, right? Then you'd want to look at, are these organizations going to give you anything for free? Right? And I know that might be a questionable thing to say, but remember, if an organization is not ready to help you when they're interested in your product, they will probably not help you after putting in the money as well, right? So remember, you do not want somebody to give you the money and just sit and watch your product unfold or watch the market unfold. You want somebody to put some skin in the game beyond just the money, right? And I would say those things are extremely critical. The list is extremely long, but let's just say that just because you're an entrepreneur asking for funding does not mean you accept whatever comes your way. It's extremely critical that you do your due diligence and you vet who the organization giving you the money is and how much equity or how much debt and what's the sort of terms and conditions of the contract as well.
Oh, this is awesome. I think this is kind of advice which are applicable for many startups, local startups. And I know there is some British VC, Sturgeon Capital. I think they're based in Tashkent. They have a Almaty branch. They kind of fund Central Asian startups, and they say it's competitive advantage given relatively low wages of local engineers. And it gives kind of, if they invest 100K, it gives runtime of like several years for a startup. But because local startups and overall business, we didn't have much competition, and people kind of don't know what is basic fundamental concepts like positioning, like marketing skills. I was just resembling this video. They make DMUK was featured in the video with you, where you mentioned that positioning, like engineers doing market positioning, influencers doing that. Marketing people should put more effort. Could you kind of a little bit elaborate on this for a startup founder? What could be like first steps to establish right strategy, marketing strategy, or positioning strategy? This
Right.
would be, I think,
So
most beneficial.
correct. So that's a good question. So let's start with why it's important to have a good positioning, right? So when you are pre-seed or seed stage, asking for seed or pre-seed investment, you are sort of experimenting with your ideas, right? You have a hypothesis, you have a minimum viable product, and you're testing it with the market to find who your first paying customers are going to be and where your product fits into your customers' lives, right? And so essentially what we are doing is we're trying to find a product market fit. Okay. And so before you go for your, for example, Series A round, you want to have a good product market fit, right? When you want to ask for a big funding amount, the investors want to see who your customers are, why are they buying your product, how often are they buying your product, right? This is where traction comes in. Your KPIs come in. What's your revenue? What's your burn rate? What is your customer acquisition cost? What's your customer lifetime value? All of those technicalities. But essentially, everything starts for a successful company with finding a good product market fit. Now, the first thing you want to know is what is your value proposition, right? For it, you are a business. You are, let's say, for example, a finance platforms that helps integration for payments, right? For multiple applications, mobile applications. Then you want to find what kind of customers are you going to have. If it's B2B, what kind of businesses are you going to target, right? What's your business model? What's your revenue streams? How are you going to earn money, right? What's your traction for the next 3 months? So all of these questions are extremely important to ask, and it all starts with the research phase, right? Remember, you need to know your market, number one, extremely, extremely well. What is the sector and what is the industry that you are a part of? Number two, you need to have a clear understanding of your competitive advantage. The way you're going to have that is by doing a competitor's analysis of your industry, right? What kind of competitors do you have? Who are your direct competitors? Who are your indirect competitors, right? Then you want to see how your product or your services are different from your competitor's product, right? And then you want to understand who your target persona is. Who are you essentially marketing towards? And when you find the sweet spot between what your customers need and what you provide, you get a beautiful match of value proposition. And then you want to say, we are different because XYZ, right? And that gives you a unique positioning in the minds of the customers, right? You want to be different, but at the same time, you want to be unique, right? So I think that's a good starting point. There are lots of frameworks that academically we use, right? You have the business model canvas, you have the value proposition canvas, but I would say the crux is just understanding who your customer is, and then where do you find your customers then, right? Do your customers live on social media? Are your customers in the mall? Are your customers sitting on their couch at home watching TV, right? So if they are watching TV, then you have to go to them. Then you have to find out, how do you advertise on TV? If your customers are spending 8 hours on Instagram, then you're going to have to go to Instagram, right? So who your customers are, where to find them, then how do you strategically go where they are? Considering budgets, marketing is an extremely expensive affair. Marketing equals burn, a lot of burn. And especially when you're an early stage startup, having too much burn is not a good thing, right? Investors will always ask you, what's your burn rate? What's your average burn for the last 3 months? How much cash do you have in your bank? So make sure to sort of have that in check. One good way of understanding is your customer acquisition cost in general has to be lower than the customer lifetime value. This means that the amount of money that your customer is going to spend on buying your product, your cost to acquire that customer has to be less than that, right? And so these are just few yardsticks that you can use to get to your strategy. And then test, right? You have an hypothesis saying that, you know what, this person in Almaty is going to buy my product, and then you want to test it out, right? If that test doesn't come true, then you test the second hypothesis, then you test the third hypothesis. You make changes and features. You create improvisations, right? Till you get the perfect sweet spot of, hey, customers are coming to a platform and they're coming repeatedly, right? Now, there's a key difference between acquiring customers and retaining customers, right? And that's why it's important to have KPIs and metrics that show you the growth or the change in the number of customers. For example, let's say I'm telling you, Feline Capital has 5,200 customers, right? And the next time I say we have 5,250 customers. Now the 5,000 number can sound super attractive, right? How you already have 5,000 customers. But if I'm looking at month on month, I have only increased 50 customers, right? And so it's essential to look at your change metrics to see, are you really growing? And if you're not, what are the changes that you can make to then grow faster, right? And do let me know if I'm a little too fast or if you'd like me to clarify anything.
Yeah, that's a lot of big chunk of kind of framework. Guys, if you have some requirements to clarify any point, feel free to write questions. We have questions from Sultan.
Yeah.
I just saw it. I don't even check for validity. Sorry about that. Where to open a legal entity and what form of ownership is best to register to make it more convenient to receive investments? I heard that I can open in Delaware, USA.
Delaware, USA. Yes. So essentially, I think this would clearly depend on, number one, who you are as a co-founder, how many co-founders you all are. Number two is the nature of your company and the industry. So clearly having, for example, a Dubai and a UK entity would be in certain industries much better than to have an entity in the US, take Web3, for example, right? So I think it really depends on the nature of the company. And number two is what stage your company is and what kind of funding are you looking for, right? All of these questions would matter if you're looking at institutional funding, but if you're just looking to get bootstrapped or if you're looking to just get small angel funding, then you can start much smaller.
Thank you, dear Sultan, for a good question. We had recently this Digital Almaty event with many like industries, industrial guys, VCs, and there was a VC from Saudi Arabia, and he came promoting governmental some innovation fund, which provides to entrepreneurs 130K US dollar per 1 year, and he was inviting people to go to MENA, to Saudi Arabia, establish a legal entity, and kind of scale to MENA. And well, personally, I don't know actually where to scale in MENA aside from Saudi Arabia or Egypt. I don't know about Algeria, but given this, we have this question. In your opinion, what do investors look for in startup companies?
Right. So just on the point of sort of registering your company, right? I think Dubai is great for many reasons. And it's not just for probably easier regulations. They encourage sort of the startup ecosystem, but it is also about the influx of a lot of interesting people, right? And a good example of a good startup is when you have good people that you hire, right? The second thing is you can build a very solid, expensive network of people. Number three is a lot of the events that you talk about, right? Take any tech event, Web Summit event, Web3 specifically, blockchain, AI, they're all mostly centered around sort of in and around Dubai, right? And so when you're talking about what's the benefit, you have to look beyond just the legalities and the currency aspect. And you also have to look at probably B2B partnerships, networks, and people that you're going to meet that are going to help push the idea or the agenda of your business forward. So I just wanted to add that point. And coming to what do investors look for in startup companies? Well, the first thing I'm going to say, and a lot of people overlook this, right? Every time I'm in my class, I'm like, what do you think investors look for in startups? And my students will give me all different kinds of answers, like money and your office and the funding and the profits and revenue. And I will tell you, before all of this, right? The first thing that you want to look at is who you are investing in, the person who you're speaking to, right? So the founders or the co-founders of the company are probably the first thing I would look at if I was an investor, right? Because number one, you need to make sure that the people you're investing in have integrity, right? They're honest, they're passionate, they have some sort of a SME, a clear idea of the industry that they're working in, a clear idea of the organization that they're running and their business model and all of those things, right? Number two, you want to make sure that they are reliable, right? So after you look at who those people are, then you want to look at what kind of value they bring to your table. For example, if I have a portfolio of predominantly health tech companies, right? And maybe there is another nice health tech company, but maybe I want to diversify into biotech, right? So then probably I will not pay attention to that, right? So the nature of your company matters. Then obviously your traction. I feel like traction trumps everything, right? How are you performing? What are your month-to-month metrics? How many people are you coming to your platform? What is your retention rate? Like I said, what is your burn? How much cash do you have available to spend on any features or any additions that you would need? The other thing we want to know is, first of all, do you have a clear idea of how much funding you require, right? And it's always a good rule of thumb to ask for enough money to ensure that you don't need to keep having bridge rounds, right? That's also a sign of a good entrepreneur, right? You add a cushion and a buffer because in a business, you never know when things might go wrong. So these are small things that really show you what caliber the entrepreneur is, right? And obviously, you want the entrepreneur to sort of be more proactive, ask for things, question the investors themselves. Because if they don't, then we clearly know that they're not particular about who they take funding from, and then eventually who's going to sit at the cap table, right? So those are a couple of things I would say that come to my mind first.
Thank you so much. This is really high quality, comprehensive answers. I'm not quite got used to this kind of quality. And Raisa, thank you, Raisa. Raisa just saying she enjoying listening
Thank
to
you so
you,
much. I
Devika.
appreciate that, Raisa.
Uh,
Awesome. Also, one interesting thing I'd like to share because I'm speaking from Kazakhstan and you're here, right? Is that I was surprised the other day when I was looking at the GDP of Kazakhstan, and it's a phenomenal number, right? It's over $220 billion from 2022 for a population this size. And if you see, a lot of that money comes from predominantly oil and gas, right? Natural resources. But now what's happening is because of Caspi, applications like Caspi that ease payment across the ecosystem, you might actually also see an increase in a lot of startups, even because of that. Because when I was looking at the statistics, about 82% of people over 15 years of age have used Caspi payments before, which is a fantastic number, right? That means y'all are digitalized. People have access to make payments, which means people have access to go and scroll through their phone, which is a good number. So it's a sweet spot on the economy and the potential that users and customers have here, right? The other thing I would say is because of a lot of geopolitical reasons, there's a lot of influx of people, a lot of different kind of people are coming into the country, which is a phenomenal thing culturally, and also because it breeds ideas. The other thing I wanted to mention was if you see a lot of layoffs that have happened from 2020 to the year 2023, right? Have predominantly happened in 2023, not 2020. So about 60 to 62% of layoffs happen later in 2023. And out of every 100 people who are laid off, at least one person statistically tries to start their own company. So a lot of these environmental, geopolitical, and economic factors, I would say, is a good opportunity for entrepreneurship spirit to build and spurt like that. Also, universities, like for example, where I'm working at DMUK right now, gives an opportunity for a lot of students to go out and think about ideation, right? It is the hustle culture. Everybody wants to have a side business and then another side business. In fact, students as young as 16 and 17 are talking about building their side businesses. And so I think that is phenomenal. And what we can do best in this country right now is to encourage that spirit, is to provide resources and opportunities for a lot of these ideas to then eventually become real life breathing businesses, right? For example, one of my students has registered for Astana Hub. They're providing these trainings for literally 1,500 tenge, which I think is super, super affordable for any given student, right? It's sometimes the price of a coffee. And providing programs like that, marketing them and telling students, hey, you know what, you should come to our platform. We will give you the training required, is you are grooming and breeding these ideas for them to eventually become businesses. And that's very, very important. And that's where I guess you come in as well. I know you guys run programs across universities, so I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, we across universities. We also have accelerator. It's called Silkway, jointly by Google for Startups and Astana Hub, and it serves all region companies from Mongolia, like Georgia, all Central Asia. They can go there, and Astana Hub provides apartment for 3 months in Astana and mentorship.
Wow.
And basically, many of the startups, they just come for brand, kind of a stamp that is Google for Startups, and then as they expand internationally. Dear Devika, you mentioned, guys, by the way, we're almost finishing because we booked Devika's time for like half an hour. If you have questions, last chance to type. We have just few minutes. And you mentioned some programs you run. If there will be people interested, what are the links available, or they just write to you in direct message? If you want, we could post it in the comments below the video later on, just for information.
Yes. Perfect. So so essentially there's two kinds of programs, right? One obviously is sort of the one-on-one consulting structure. This is already if you have a product, an idea in mind, and you're already looking for funding. And the other side is if you're interested to become an investor or enter the venture capital space, right? So you have both these avenues. Do you want to take the entrepreneurial route, or do you want to take the venture capital funding route? And for both of these, you can write to me, and then I can send you all the individual links that are required. The programs, the applications will end in about April, mid of April. So any questions before that are always welcome.
Okay. Thank you. We will kind of process information. It seems we processed all the questions. It was quite active, loyal audience. Some people watching without stopping from the beginning. Thank you guys for watching, and dear Devika, thank you. Maybe we should do another stream sometimes later in a few months. If you happen, as I understand, you recently arrived to the region. If you will stay for longer,
September.
Oh, yeah, yes. It's just recently. So it could be maybe interesting to see your perspective. Have you traveled around like to Tashkent to have like other big IT hubs?
I wanted to, but I don't like the snow. So I'm just waiting for the spring to come, the snow to melt. But I have been around Almaty. So I've gone to Lake Kandi, Kolsai, the canyon. So all of those things I've done, and it was beautiful. One of the most beautiful places I've seen, honestly. But I do want to go around to different sort of countries around as well, Kyrgyzstan as well, Uzbekistan at some point. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm able to stay longer and explore.
I wish you good luck in exploring and in your adventure in the region. It was a pleasure meeting you. Have a nice evening. Take care.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.